Hello and welcome back to the Oasis podcast, and it is time for part 2 of our ranking of every single Oasis official music video. So this should be good fun. If you haven't checked out the first part, go and hit the link in the description to go and listen to that, numbers 37 to 21. But here we're going to be starting with number 20. So at number 20 we have Lila. This is one again similar, I feel, to the Let Forever Be video, as we have a female protagonist, even with a similar haircut, thrown into a world of psychedelic madness. However, in this case we start off in black and white, and she's in a pretty horrible situation. We've got scary dogs and pretty evil looking geezers. And finally she makes her escape, and she's thrown into a Technicolor orgy of madness. Oasis are playing once again in their designer clothes era. Liam rocking a cravat and shades, and Zach has got a very Keith Moon mod jacket. Lila starts off having a great time, but then it turns into a bit of a bad trip as faces get distorted and it all goes a bit freaky. I like the way the performance is integrated. You want to have a bit of performance, but how can that then fit in with the story of the video? I think in this way they've done it really well. I enjoy the vibrant colours and all the effects, and overall the design is really interesting with lots of bizarre outfits and costumes. When the trip gets too much, Lila heads back to the real world, and we get a nice little nod to Don't Believe the Truth's garage doors. The only thing I feel though is a little bit concerning is she's in a horrible situation in the real world. Then she goes into this dream world where it starts off great, but then it goes horrible and intimidating and scary. But then she goes back to the real world where it's still horrible for her over there. So she's got a choice: nasty black and white world with these vicious geezers and scary dogs, or the colourful messed up madness of the Oasis party, which is a really scary horrible trip. Couldn't her come into the Oasis world have kind of saved her, and then she goes back and it's like at the end of Back to the Future where suddenly everything's a lot better for her because she's got that newfound confidence? Or would that be a bit cheesy? I don't know. But anyway, it's sort of a little bit of a strange way to end it. But yes, Lila is a good video, number 20. At number 19 we have the other Acquiesce video. This is apparently credited to Jill Furmanovsky. This was released in support of the Master Plan Best Of, and it takes footage from the GMEX gig at the Be Here Now tour and intersperses it with lots of backstage fun and footage of different things from the Be Here Now tour. It's great to be transported back to that time of absolute madness. Fantastic to see iconic moments like Noel charging through the airport with the Union Jack guitar, and it's just wonderful to see the guys having a great time. Also, this version of Acquiesce here has Noel doing a lot more complex lead playing as compared to the record and to the arrangement that Noel was playing in 1995 and 1996. I really like that. It's got a lot of John Squire sort of moments. Overall, this video does pale a bit in comparison to the main road performance of Acquiesce that's captured on There and Then, which is a shame because this is a great performance in its own right, and it does have that more complex guitar playing that I prefer, but nothing can compare with that main road performance. So you kind of think, well, if you were going to release something to promote the Master Plan, couldn't you have released a slightly different song from the Be Here Now tour? But anyway, this is still a really good, enjoyable video. Love all the backstage stuff. Okay, up to 18, and we are getting into proper classic territory now. We have Champagne Supernova. Now this is one of the better known videos as it got lots of play on American MTV. Correct me if I'm wrong, Americans, in the comments, but isn't it more Wonderwall 1, Champagne Supernova 2 for you guys? I always think that Don't Look Back in Anger was probably the second most famous song, but I'm pretty sure Champagne Supernova was there, what with the MTV Awards appearance and everything, and obviously you've got Rock Radio over there. But anyway, this has gone down as an absolutely iconic moment in the history of the band. Liam's rocking his Lennon look with beard and round glasses, while Noel has that red, white and blue shirt with blue coloured specs. What I really like here is that the others have all got something to do. Whitey's listening to some tapes, Gwigsy's cleaning his bass, and Bonehead is really the star of the show, blowing on his old melodica. Now the video does drop a few places for me because the lighting effects and the dancing girls feel very much of their time, And while I get it's kind of a callback to the 60s videos where you would have sort of dancing girls and sort of this kind of psychedelic lighting effect, I think when you look at the fashions and the way it's shot, it feels very, very 90s. And while I think that's a good thing, it ultimately does date it, and you don't really need sort of dancing girls like this. So yeah, so I think that does drop it down a little bit for me. I think a good comparison where they use sort of dancing girls in that cool way is the last Shadow Puppets video, when they kind of use 60s dancing girls. I think that's sort of a better use of that, really. This one feels a little bit cheesy. So anyway, but yeah, still an absolutely iconic video, well shot. Just a few of those little things that I think could have been better. At 17, it's another American shot one, Morning Glory. Now, I really enjoy all the band stuff in this video, as the guys are crammed into a little apartment, kicking a football round, and it generally seems a bit hot and bothered. It's sort of smoky or steamy in there, and I sort of love the atmosphere that conjures up. That whole element is really frenetic, and I think it works really well with the song. What drops it down for me a little bit though is the concept of the random people walking past and getting frustrated and hammering on the door. I quite like the fisheye lens of it, but yeah, I just think it's a bit cheesy, and it feels like a 90s MTV cheesy video thing to do. And to be fair, it's directed by Jake Scott, son of Ridley, who'd made a lot of music videos around this time, including R.E.M's Everybody Hurts, Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees, and Tina Turner's Goldeneye. So this is a classic 90s MTV style video, which is fine, and I think it works really well. It did what it was supposed to do, but that whole aspect of it, not a huge fan of. But when it comes to the guys kicking around in the apartment, fantastic stuff. Now at 16, I might surprise a few of you, because up here I have Who Feels Love. I know I've mentioned on Twitter a few days ago what were people's least favourite, and there was a few shouts for this, so I do understand that it's not necessarily the most dynamic of videos. But for me, in terms of an artistically put together music video which works well with the song, I think this is an excellent piece of work that really does what it's supposed to do. The colours really pop here as the Oasis boys do what they do best, standing around looking cool and walking around in slow motion. They're in the desert, which looks amazing, and I really love the way the image is framed with the multiple windows showing different things. It maybe is a little bit higher up on my list because I interviewed Nick Egan, and he gave me some great insight into how this came together, so I suppose that's always in the back of my mind when I'm watching this video. I love the fact that we pick up where we left off, with them getting off the Go Let It Out bus, and the whole video is these deep oranges and blues. The editing's great with lens flare, and then when it comes to the fashion as well, Liam's rocking two great looks, the red collarless jacket and then that fantastic blue and white floral shirt. While Who Feels Love is certainly not one of my favourite songs, and the video is not groundbreaking, it's one where I really think the concept did exactly what it was required to do and was executed fantastically well. An added bonus is the reference to Zabiskie Point with the explosions at around the 4-minute mark, and as we know from the other Nick Egan directed videos, he loved to put in little references to older films, and this is the one here. Now at 15 we have The Master Plan, and this is my highest ranked video by far that doesn't actually feature any Oasis members in real life. We do get them here, but in animated form, in the style of L.S. Lowry, one of Manchester's greatest artists, and a fine choice to base a video on his style, seeing as he was best known for capturing working class northern people, and that's exactly what Oasis were able to do better than any other indie band in recent memory. The way the animators and directors Ben and Greg capture Liam's swagger is a thing of absolute beauty, but beyond that, every shot is full of wonderful little Easter eggs, from all the guys stepping out of terraced houses like the Beatles in Help, to the details on Noel's face, including obviously his epic eyebrows. We see Main Road, Sifters, Johnny Roadhouse music, and various other things from the Oasis story. It just goes to show at this stage we are now getting into what I would class as really exceptional videos, and the only reason this isn't higher is because it came out later in the band's life. So it feels more like a tribute to the band, something that a fan could have put together, rather than something that was coming out concurrently with the band producing the songs that are being portrayed. Now at 14 we get into a US version. We have the US version of Supersonic. Now a lot of you might see this and think of this as stuff from the Some Might Say video, but that's because a lot of this Supersonic US version hadn't really been seen in the UK and was then reused in the Some Might Say video like we talked about on part 1 of this video. Once again directed by Nick Egan, this was designed to get play on MTV, and the frenetic editing style and bold colours are certainly flashier and grab the attention more than the UK video, which is quite straightforward and filmed on a roof in King's Cross. We see the guys in and out of cars on the road experiencing some very weird things, including huge dinosaurs. The performance element, much of which was cribbed for the Some Might Say video, is really well shot, with multiple lights within a dome giving it a far different feel to a typical gig setting. As always, Nick Egan is referencing another film, and in this case it's The Man Who Fell to Earth. There's a number of shots that pull from that, although it's not one that I immediately got, so check out the interview I did with Nick, where he goes into that in a bit more detail. Now in a way I do think this is a better video than the UK Supersonic version, but I have it a bit lower here because the fast editing and the setting being in America, it loses some of the lo-fi Mancunian charm of the early videos, so it's quite a bit lower than the UK version. I have it here at number 14. Okay, one above it at 13 is a similar story, hence I've got them both next to each other. It's Nick Egan's US alternate video for Live Forever. Similar again, on a like-for-like basis, I think this is technically the better video of the two versions of Live Forever. If I was actually the manager and I was presented with these two options back in 1994, I would have gone with this one. I love the lighting, I love the setup of Liam being sat behind the desk with photos of all the legends around him. I like the fact they kind of come to life near the end. However, once again, the UK version is just so iconic. It's got the off-kilter surrealism that really made them stand out. So even though I think this is technically the better video, I don't know, something about that UK version, it just really speaks to me, and it's just got so many more memories tied in with it, watching it over and over again back in the 90s. Once again we have our Nick Egan film homage. This time it's to the Mick Jagger film Performance, but only true aficionados of that film would really get that, I would imagine. At number 12, and I have Lord Don't Slow Me Down. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of my disappointments with the Let There Be Love video is just how it focuses on them on stage, and it's really slow. Whereas here on the Lord Don't Slow Me Down music video, we get all the fun stuff that makes the Lord Don't Slow Me Down documentary a great watching experience. All the tour shenanigans are here, including Liam's lovely little dance through the crack in the door. We've got the band playing Frustration. We've got the birthday party when little people are brought in. It's just a really great insight into the fun and games they were having backstage. The editing of the video perfectly suits the pace of the song, and it's generally a great insight into life on the road. And while a lot of talk about the latter era of Oasis is that they weren't particularly happy and it was negative, actually looking at this, it seems like they're having a great time. Okay, into number 11 now, and I think anything from here, to be honest, on a good day, could be number 1 spot. They're so close now, from 11 all the way up to number 1. But at 11 I have The Importance of Being Idle. The overall tone of this video is spot on, and perfectly ties with the style of the music. Both have got that feel of a jaunty early 60s British film. Rhys Ifans is the absolute star of the show. I wouldn't necessarily say he's dancing, but every movement is so precise. He's got so much swagger and confidence, and his performance is exactly what it needs to be. He also looks a lot like Liam, which kind of adds to it. It would have been great if they'd made an Oasis biopic back in the 90s or 2000s. He could have played Liam, but he's a bit too old now, to be fair. We get a little bit of a cameo from the rest of the guys in the band very briefly, including Noel shaving, or not actually shaving, as he does point out in the commentary. But this is all about the tone, the choreography, the direction's fantastic, but most of all, Rhys Ifan's performance is absolutely brilliant. Into the top 10 now, and we kick off with the UK version of Supersonic. This was many people's first introduction to Oasis, and what a way to introduce yourself. The guys look cool as fuck playing on the roof as planes fly overhead. Here was a band in typical high street lads clothes, playing cool, simple rock and roll music. The moments that really stand out for me though are not necessarily when they're trying to look cool, but when we see them let loose a little bit. There's a great shot of Gwiggs laughing with his hair being blown in the wind, Liam charging towards the camera with his hands behind his back and a big smile on his face, the lads having a kickabout with a bit of rubbish. This wasn't just a band of cool musicians, these were lads that you wanted to hang around with. At 9, here's one you might have seen before. This is Wonderwall. It's got by far the most views on YouTube. It's got by far the most plays of any of their songs. This is really the biggest song in the Oasis canon, and this video is definitely a reason for that. It really pushed it into millions of homes around the world, especially in America, and it drove Oasis on to be the biggest band in the world for a while. This video has become so iconic. I mean, what more can you say about it? It's bloody Wonderwall. Liam's never looked cooler. His hair's fantastic. There's loads of great little moments. I love seeing Bonehead try and look cool but then cracking up. And obviously seeing Scott McCloud is a wonderful little Easter egg, forever immortalised in his very brief stint in the band. Nigel Dick directs here, and he had the good idea of leaving props around for the guys to play with to keep them active. So while they're never comfortable doing videos, actually having little things to keep their attention works really well. I love the way the camera spins. I love the point where Liam turns to the side and we see that flash across a number of Liam faces. But the video does lose some points for me for some other things that were thrown in there. The circus performers, the clowns, the ventriloquists and things. I mean, what the fuck's all that about? And saws flapping around. There was no need for that. That just makes it a bit weird and unnecessary, and I don't know what the hell's that got to do with anything. Clowns, what? Weird. But anyway, you can't argue with it. An absolutely iconic video and one that made such a huge impact. At 8, we are staying in black and white for Whatever. This was the last one directed by Mark Zazie, before he then got pissed off with them about them reusing a lot of his stuff for the Some Might Say video. And we are in black and white here for Whatever, as an extremely hungover or possibly still drunk from the night before Noel really is the star here as he shows off his best little jig. He steals Liam's shots, he scoffs McDonald's, he sweeps up, he's just on great form. Looking at this and Wonderwall back to back, there's a lot of similarities actually with the black and white setting, the musicians wandering around playing, but at least it's not random circus performers here, it's actual string players. I love to see them at this stage of their career where they're still in a good frame of mind, happy to goof off for the cameras. Liam's got such a happy-go-lucky disposition throughout. And then the one element that really lifts it up a notch is in that Here in My Mind section, when we get some really cool little effects switching between two shots to create that real disorientation. I think that works with the section of the song really well. But overall, a really fun video that captures the guys at this moment in their careers where they know they're getting big, they know they're good, but they're still having fun and they haven't got the kind of the detached coolness that they would come to later. At 7 we have one of their lesser seen videos, Rock and Roll Star. Now this wasn't a single in the UK chart, so hence it wasn't really played very much over here, but it's one that I really enjoy and it's one that I am always happy to flick on. The footage is taken from the famous Live by the Sea gig at Southend, which is an absolutely blistering performance. And interspersed with that, we've got some great footage of the guys pissing about on the pavilion. It was such a genius idea to give them little cameras, so as they're running around capturing footage of themselves, we see them taking part in all sorts of typical seaside behaviour, like going on bumper cars, go-karts, going bowling, etc. It's just what a great idea to let them catch themselves. It just means they loosen up a lot more than if it's just, a camera pointed right at their face. The only downside for me is the super fast editing style. With all the added effects over it, it just gets a bit too much. I'd just love to have it slowed down a little bit and just really enjoy the moments of seeing the guys bombing around and having a great time. At 6, and we have the UK version of Live Forever. Like I said earlier, I actually think the US version is technically the better video, but there is something so special, and I'm going to use that word again, iconic, about this video. Now, this would have been the first Oasis video I ever watched, the first time I'd ever seen them, on the chart show in August 1994. At the time I wasn't really into indie music, so I remember thinking, oh well, there's another of those whiny indie bands with that weird haircut. How wrong I was. In a couple of months I would be full on the Oasis train and I'd have that haircut myself. There are some very strange choices, such as the mix of forwards and backwards effects, shooting primarily in black and white although with green, and then some elements in full colour. Bonehead having a shower, fully clothed apparently, which Noel confirmed on the commentary track, and that prophetic moment of Tony being buried at the end of the video. We get Liam sitting on a chair on the side of a wall, which was then stolen years later by Louis Tomlinson for one of his videos. I wish I could think of another word that fits it better than iconic, but honestly I can't. It's iconic. That's all it is. Iconic. Into the top 5, what a great opening shot of some chavvy kid we have there, and we have Shakermaker. What I really love here is that we're in Manchester. We're around the back of Peggy's house, we're outside Bonehead's house. The guys are in Manchester, they're playing the music, and it's a lovely glimpse into where they were at this point in their careers. We get a nice little cameo from Brian Cannon, who's driving the car. We take a trip to Sifters, which has then immortalised that place. And it still looks exactly the same as it did back then. If you're ever in Manchester, you've got to go and pop in and go and speak to Pete. The real fun part though for me is at the end when they start to have a kickabout, including Gwiggs wearing a motorcycle helmet for some reason. It appears that that is the secret to get a great Oasis video. Give them something to kick, whether it's a football or some rubbish. It'll always get them engaged. I also love all the little clips with the kids from the local neighbourhood randomly turning up in the video. I'd love to track down one of those kids. If you're watching this, was that you? Were you there wandering around Burnage in 1994? Let me know. At 4 we have cigarettes and alcohol. Now what a great idea for a video. Get a bunch of models, give them loads of booze, and just film what happens next. Oh, the 90s. The shots of Liam and Noel wandering around in the ladies' toilets are hilarious. The girls falling down pissed are great. And just the general debauchery backstage, I just think it's brilliant. I love to see it. However, what really makes this video is the live footage. Mark Zazy, the director, really manages to capture the Oasis live experience. And how cool do the guys look? Liam hanging off the microphone before he developed his hands behind the back style. Noel with a fag hanging out the side of his mouth. This is exactly what being young and in a rock and roll band is all about. Perfect. Plus, isn't it weird to see them all smoking on stage and indoors? Very weird. Very 90s. So how do you follow the most raw and dirty simple video possible with the most ridiculous and over the top video possible? At number 3 we have All Around the World. Directors Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris were coming off having utilised live action and animation for Tonight Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins. That cleaned up at the MTV Awards by using a style inspired by Georges Méliès's famous film A Trip to the Moon. This time they would continue to use a mixture of live action and animation, although rather than going with the early days of cinema, they went more with a 60s, 70s style, mixing a bit of Yellow Submarine with a bit of Terry Gilliam Monty Python. The band take flight on a yellow spaceship and go through various mad journeys. When we talk about a video managing to encapsulate the spirit of a song, this video achieves that brilliantly, with so many crazy and memorable images, including a man made of sausages, which really tickles Noel in the commentary track. And if you zoom in, I think he might have the face of Man United footballer Lee Sharp. I've never seen that mentioned anywhere, but I think it is. What do you think? Anyway, my highlight though is Noel being revealed on top of the spaceship for the massive na 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 as trumpets shoot out all around him. This is the most ridiculous over-the-top song, and we've got a ridiculous over-the-top video to go with it, and I absolutely love it. At 2 we have another one that's absolutely iconic. I'll tell you what, if you're doing a drinking game of have a drink every time I say iconic, you'd be probably half pissed by now. This was very close to being my number 1. I've moved it around a few times, but I've settled for it at number 2 for now. This is Don't Look Back in Anger. Similar to Wonderwall, what more is there to be said about this video that hasn't been said a million times before? We have Patrick Macnee, Steed from the Avengers, not the Marvel one, the original British 60s one, which is a lovely callback. We have 100 Sallys wandering around, one of which Alan White married apparently. We have that great moment where Bonehead leans against a wall looking super cool. Noel looks great with that black top with the stripes across it and the coloured shades. The video doesn't really tell a story, but it doesn't need to. What have we got here? We've got the band looking really cool, playing one of the best songs ever written, with an amazing setting and a brilliant cameo. What more could you want? Well, what more could you want? How about helicopters? Here is Do You Know What I Mean? At number 1, my pick for the best Oasis video. Now this does come back to the fact that I was at peak Oasis fandom in the summer of 1997. I just turned 17. I'd absolutely loved Oasis, and that wait for Do You Know What I Mean to come out, it was the most anticipation I'd ever had for a song and a music video, and to see it for the first time, it absolutely blew my mind. Here they were, my favourite band, the biggest band in the world, back with an absolutely monumental song and a video that's just as huge and crazy to go with it. Where do we start? Helicopters, the flares being let off, the Full Metal Jacket setting, Noel playing a flying V guitar for some reason, Liam's haircut and shades, and Liam mouthing the backwards elements in Backwards. It's just brilliant. It's a remarkable piece from start to finish, and when you think of the money they spent with the multiple helicopters flying overhead, this was an indie band a couple of years before, wandering around the back streets of Manchester, and now they're here. It's just ridiculous. So there we have it. Do you agree with my ranking? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again very soon, either here on YouTube or over on the Oasis podcast, which is available where you get all your favourite podcasts and some rubbish ones. Stay in touch, stay engaged, and stay young.